Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Catechumens Depart. It's good to see you again. I'm Eric Anderson.
Father Mark Kozak, pastor and rector of Holy Assumption Orthodox Church in South Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Ooh. And I'm here to badger you yet again.
Never, never, ever, ever. I don't see anything in black and white. Actually, that's not true. I see something in black and white, but that's a dog. That's not a badger.
She kind of looks like a badger, but you guys can't see her. She's presently bothering my wife, trying to get some treats from her. Anyway, thank you for joining us, as always. It's good to be with you. Last week we ended... let me pause there, actually. We had a couple of questions. One is backburnered for a little research, but the second is from one of our recent catechumens, Anthony. He asked what perhaps the place of Dante's Divine Comedy might be within an Orthodox theology or just an understanding. He was just curious how that might fit in or how we might look at that.
And unfortunately, I'm blanked on this because I haven't read the Divine Comedy. Oh my God.
Score one for Anthony. He stumped the priest.
Anthony stumped the priest very easily. Of course, in my case, it's very easy to stump me because if you go outside of a narrow window, then that's it.
Okay.
So please forgive me, Anthony. I will take this fall and read it.
Yeah, I picked it up in the spring and then I got sidetracked by, I don't know, maybe the global pandemic or something. Oh, well, here's our dog who looks like a badger. Hi, Maggie. It's good to see you.
It's a good time to read, though. So.
It is. So, all right, well, that's it for Q&A.
Please forgive me. Please forgive me for not being able to answer that. I'm not wired for that one yet, but no. I will make an attempt and read.
So, all right, well, then we'll pick up where we were at the end of last show, which was we had talked a bit about what mission work within the context of Orthodoxy looks like. We had said that we're fairly successful outside of the realm of the United States. But within the realm of the United States itself, it's a little bit more difficult. And some of that has to do with the fact that we are in a unique situation here in the United States in that we are jurisdictionally divided rather than anywhere else there's Orthodoxy. There's just whatever Orthodox Church, Bulgaria or wherever you might be. So maybe we'll dive into that whole thing this week. What is the jurisdictional issue in the United States? Why is it? Where did it come from? And maybe where are we headed with it?
Let's talk about what's going on right now.
Okay.
I think that would be the first thing to do.
Cool.
There are a number of assemblies of canonical Orthodox bishops in the world. I'm not sure how many right now there are, but the one that we belong to is North America, and these are all of the canonical bishops. There's about 60-odd canonical Orthodox bishops in North America.
Okay. In all jurisdictions?
In all jurisdictions, yes. Okay. Jurisdiction is a specific Orthodox word, and has really been since the late 19-teens, is a group of Orthodox Christians that is usually, excluding one jurisdiction, is usually under a patriarch or a metropolitan under an independent church outside of America. Mm-hmm. So in the case of the Russian Church, which is the first missionizers of America in Alaska, and then the first church in California, and so on. The Russians have two jurisdictions in the United States. One is under the patriarch himself, and the other is under the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, called ROKOR. So there are two Russian jurisdictions in.
What's the one that's
America.
under the Patriarch?
It's called the Russian Patriarchate, the Moscow Patriarchate.
Oh, that's what the Moscow
Yeah,
Patriarch.
if you hear, Patriarchal Church, that's what they're referring to.
Okay.
There is a Bulgarian jurisdiction under Bulgaria, and then there is a small jurisdiction under the Orthodox Church in America, Bulgarians. There is an Albanian jurisdiction under the church in Albania, and there is a small jurisdiction of about 16 parishes under the Orthodox Church in America, two of which are in Philadelphia, strangely enough.
Huh.
There is the largest of the jurisdictions is the Greek Archdiocese, which is separated into metropolitanates. I bet you don't hear that word too often.
Woo!
Well, hey, yeah, right, yeah.
Vocab for the day.
So it is a metropolitanate is a geographical area under a bishop under a metropolitan. So there's the Metropolitan of New Jersey is responsible for the state of New Jersey, for part of Pennsylvania, Maryland, and part of Virginia.
Okay.
So that's his diocese, his metropolitanate. And there are a group of, I think, 11 Greek bishops that are under the presidency of the Greek Synod in America of the Archbishop in New York.
Okay.
But they are one jurisdiction. There's the Orthodox Church in America, which is the second largest jurisdiction, which was the Russian Orthodox Greek Catholic Church of America.
Say that fast.
And try and remember that. Well, it's because it's on many of our churches. Our own church has that.
That is true.
In the charter somewhere.
It says it on the little sign out front.
And it says it on a
Like
little
the
sign.
old-
That's right. It's under my name or above my name. And it has many, it's hard to say exactly how many converts and how many Slavs are, and others are in that particular jurisdiction. It could be as much as half and half. It might be 60-40 Credo Orthodox and converts. The Antiochian Orthodox Archdiocese under the Patriarch of Antioch, which is a pile of rocks in Syria, which is really under the Patriarch of Antioch, who lives in Damascus, Syria, is the third largest of the jurisdictions. The Serbian Church has a jurisdiction in the United States under the Serbian Patriarchate in Serbia. Romanian Church, there are two of them, one under the OCA, one under Romanian Archdiocese. The Ukrainians have 3 or 4, depending on how you're counting them and who they're under. One is directly under the Ecumenical Patriarch. Another is under the recognized Ukrainian church that's recognized by the Ecumenical Patriarch, but by not the Patriarchate of Russia.
So, like,
I
if
think
you
that's
guys are
basically-
baffled, I'm super
I
baffled
think
at this
that's
point.
basically it. Those are
Okay.
all the canonical Orthodox jurisdictions. Now, a jurisdiction for Protestants and former Protestants is not a denomination.
Right.
In fact, the Orthodox Church does not use that word. If someone who is Orthodox uses that word, they're trying to explain something, they're using the term in the wrong way. Orthodoxy itself isn't a denomination, neither is it a church, just a church. It is life, I think I've told you before, Christ brought life itself to us, not just a church, not just a denomination, not just a sect, not just a religion or all these other words that we use. Those are all weak, shallow words. He brought life to the world. So We are not a denomination. So you will hear that among Protestants and sometimes among Catholics. It's pretty rare that, oh yeah, there's the Greek Orthodox denomination and the Russian Orthodox denomination. No. The Orthodox Church consists of 14 to 16 independent churches, the church, the word in Greek is autocephalous. It means self-governing, which means they can produce their own bishops. They can produce their own chrism. They don't have to answer to nobody except the Orthodox Holy Tradition and the other Orthodox churches and council. So there are 14 to 16 independent churches in the world. And many of them, as I just said, have a church here in America. They also have churches in Europe because there is an Assembly of Bishops in Europe. There's an Assembly of Bishops in Australia, Indonesia, that area of the world. Like I said, I'm not sure exact. Oh, South America has an Assembly of Orthodox Bishops. However, Africa does not, because Africa goes under, the entirety of Africa goes under the Patriarchate of Alexandria in Egypt.
Oh, easy for them.
So, which is easy. You have one bishop and don't have to worry about all this other stuff. So,
how did we end up with this whole deal?
Well, we are a nation and a hemisphere of immigrants, except for our beloved Native Americans, which we just happened to spend 250 years converting. So when an immigrant group came here, at first they came under the Russian Archbishop, since there's been a Russian presence in Alaska in one way, in America for one way or another since the 1790s. And the first churches were there. The first cathedral, St. Michael's in Sitka, Alaska, was there. The first seminary was there in Sitka. The first Native American, Native Alaskan priests were ordained there, one of whom is a saint, St. Jacob. Good name. And we currently have about 110 Orthodox parishes in Alaska still. So that's where our mission started.
Right.
We followed the Russian-American company, and basically what happened was the Russian-American company and Empress Catherine and the latter Romanovs provided funds for the church in America, for the mission in America. There were good times with the Russian-American company. There were bad times with the Russian-American company. But, and things would still be basically the same if it wasn't for a number of historical factors. One was the Russian Revolution in 1917, when the church's money was cut off totally from the church around the world, but in America, which was a big mission for the Russian church.
Okay.
So the money was cut. It was like one day there was money coming in, and then boom.
Then nothing?
Nothing.
Because...
So that's when basically jurisdictionalism started. Also, along with a large Greek and Middle Eastern and then other immigrations, they came under the idea that they wanted their own bishops, their own priests, and so on to be here. There was a plan before this by at that time Bishop and then Archbishop Tikhon in America in 1908 came up with a plan of having bishops from different ethnic groups be under the Russian Archbishop, who would be the first among equals among the Orthodox bishops in America. But that plan was basically that didn't work after the revolution. So,
but everybody was kind of on board with that.
Well, they were considering it because Russia was the biggest. The Greeks were still the two Greek churches were still had less of a voice. There was Yeah, yes and no. It's what should have been done. So the first Greek bishop came here in the later 19 teens, along with the Bulgarians and then the Syrians and then so on and so forth. So we have all of these canonical bishops in the same space, which is against canons and from the first ecumenical council.
Oh, that far back.
So if we can break something, we might as well break it big. So zoom, zam, zim. We've broken this
Zingo,
word.
I believe.
Zingo is the word that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So we have multiple jurisdictions from canonical bishops from outside of a geographical area, which is not supposed to exist in the world.
Okay.
And we're, like I said, we're not the only place where this is happening.
Okay.
This is also happening in Europe, Western Europe, and in Australia and Indonesia and
places that didn't have a sort of indigenous established Orthodox.
An established Orthodox Church of 500 plus years.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, so right now, the status of each of these jurisdictions is they all recognize their canonicity among each other. Mm-hmm. There is a book out written and approved by the Council of Bishops of the Orthodox Canonical Bishops Assembly that lists priests and parishes that are canonical priests and parishes. And
it's like the yellow pages of...
It's the yellow pages of Orthodoxy in North America. So if someone has a question, this is the place where they need to look first. So you look in that book or look in, I wanted to find out whether that Father Kozak on 28th and Snyder at the Assumption Church, is he a canonical priest?
Like, is that legit?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first place to look would be in the OCA's own website to see if I'm there. Mm-hmm. And then the second place would be to look in I don't know if it's on the website, and I know there's a book, but on the Assembly of Canonical Bishops.
I feel like that's probably online,
but
at this point.
I'm pretty sure it is online. So if there's a question about canonicity, that's where you look. If there's a question about what and who this particular jurisdiction is under, that is a different story.
Okay.
And that's what we're dealing with right now with some of the bishops from various jurisdictions against other bishops. As they say, oh, your status as a church, your autonomy or your autocephaly is not recognized by everybody, so you're not canonical. That is a false accusation. Being canonical has nothing to do with your jurisdictional canonicity.
Okay.
If that was true, the Russian church would have been uncanonical from 1444 to 1588, when it was not in canonical, technically in communion with the Patriarchate of Constantinople. That was her mother church. Ah. And they went autonomous in 1444, and then they became a patriarch in 1589, actually, when it was.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So we have to be really careful when we throw around words like canonicity in jurisdictions and autocephaly and so on and so forth. Some churches recognize the Orthodox Church in America, the OCA's autocephaly. Some do not. It has nothing to do with their canonicity. They're a canonical church. A couple months ago, the primate of the Orthodox Church, Metropolitan Tikhon, served liturgy in the Fanar with the Patriarch of Constantinople. End of discussion. It should not be a problem for anyone to understand that. Yeah. That understands Orthodox ecclesiology. But we do have a problem in America with people's opinions, which are interesting at times. This is not an opinion. This is ecclesiastical fact. Mm-hmm.
I think it...
Now, there are groups of churches that don't belong to this Assembly of Bishops. Their canonicity is in doubt.
Such as?
There's a group of churches that didn't come in with ROCOR when they came back under the Moscow Patriarchate.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of churches that have some interesting relationship with bishops that might have been canonical at one time or another, but were defrocked, or something happened to them and they no longer, they're like loose cannons out there floating around somewhere.
Okay.
And they'll say, oh, well, they're the Orthodox Church of North America, Patriarchate of Timbuktu, and everything else. And you'll find that they were a canonical group for 5 minutes back in the 1960s. This is why you need the book.
That sounds super American.
Okay, so it's super. It's a echo of what we talked about a number of shows ago about what happens to religiosity in America, and these guys are good examples of that. Mm-hmm. So the Orthodox canonical jurisdictions are all under the Assembly of Bishops, and that's all we really need to know as Orthodox Christians. If it's another weird group, find out what it is. If we don't recognize who the bishop is, don't recognize who they are, then they're not canonical. Okay. Now, does that mean that they're bad people? No, it just means that they're not in communion, in canonical communion with the rest of the Orthodox Church.
It's like its own deal.
Yeah, they're their own deal. They're their own jurisdiction.
I think the difficulty this poses immediately to me, looking at it not from the outside, but having looked at it from the outside, and especially in our largely Protestant country, is that it does look like a bunch of denominations.
Yeah, it does. It does do that. But the problem is how does one make a independent church? Right.
How do we fuse this thing back together?
So there are at least three ways of making it.
Okay.
One is by a ecumenical council recognized by the entire church.
Okay.
Only 6 churches have been made that way. They are Rome before the split, Alexandria, Antioch, Constantinople, Jerusalem, and Cyprus.
Okay.
They were all made by ecumenical councils. Other churches were made by their mother church. Their mother churches, they were given their canonicity for various reasons. Sometimes because of size and maturity and everything else, sometimes for political reasons, which is why you have the Patriarchate of Constantinople give the Bulgarian church 3 autocephalies in the last 1,000 years, or 2 autocephalies for the Serbian church. The Russian church, I already described that. They went autonomous in 1444, but became a patriarchate in 1589. The Georgian church was not given its autocephaly by the Constantinople church. It was given it by the Antiochian church that had helped missionize it and helped provide monastics to it. Other churches were given their autocephaly by the Russian church or by the Patriarchate of Constantinople, or both, recognizing them together, or they both did it separately. So you have a problem in Ukraine, Estonia. I'm not sure about Latvia and Lithuania, but in Czech Republic, in Slovak Republic, in Poland, they're okay because both Constantinople and Russia agreed with that. So those are the two main ways of granting autocephaly. Is by council or by the mother church doing it.
Okay.
The best.
Since we don't really have a mother church here.
Well, our mother church gave the OCA.
Well,
the mother church.
Yeah.
The Russian church gave us our autocephaly.
But I mean, for all the other different sort of.
Oh yeah, well
overlapping.
We have 12 mother churches.
Yeah.
That's the problem. We have 12 moms. So that's the problem.
It's not as simple as being like, all right, you guys are grown up enough now, or whatever.
The mechanism of the Assembly of Orthodox Canonical Bishops is supposed to. This should be one of its mechanisms that eventually will come along. There will be a certain maturity to for the church in a given area, and then a council of independent autocephalous churches would grant autocephaly to that body. That's how it's supposed to work.
Okay.
Now, how is that going to work? Who would be the first primate of that group? How, those things are not worked out.
What would be the third possibility?
The third way is you sort of like force it.
With like big sticks?
We're autocephalous, and...
But then how do you get all of the like 57 competing bishops in one county to...
Well, you gotta wait. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of looks like there's so much, at least for me, as limited as my knowledge is like there's all this overlap.
Yeah. So here in America, we have bishops overlapping each other. We have Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is the land of Orthodox bishops. There are 5 Orthodox bishops within spitting distance of each other. New York has, I don't know how many. 5 or 6.
Yeah. And I don't see them all like agreeing to get together and like draw straws and be like, all right, Bob, you got the long straw, you're the bishop.
They would have to be, well, you can't unbishop somebody.
Right.
So they would have to be, we probably have enough bishops in America to cover our country. Because there are similar Orthodox churches that are autocephalous, that are independent, that have about this number of bishops. So this is probably, we have enough bishops to do it.
Oh, okay.
Roughly a bishop for each state.
Oh, okay.
Roughly.
But nobody wants to take South Dakota. They'd rather be in New York.
Well,
maybe not right now, but
maybe that's a concern for somebody. A bigger concern is how does the next step work?
Yeah.
Because they've been meeting, there was a group before this called SCOBA.
Right.
That met for 40 years.
Which is what, the Society of Canonical Orthodox Bishops
in America, yeah.
Okay.
So SCOBA had a number of interesting things. They developed and maintained control over the scouting awards for Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. They ran the OCFs. They were the chief starters of the OCMC, which is the Pan-Orthodox Mission group, and they were the chief starters of the IOCC, the charity group out of Baltimore that's Pan-Orthodox, run and supported by the Assembly of Bishops. So they did a lot of Pan-Orthodox things, but we didn't all get together. Many people, lay people and clergy, want us all to get together and work together and missionize together and function together. Which
would be less confusing.
Which can happen, and it can be less confusing. In some areas, we have Orthodox brotherhoods. In our area, we have Orthodox Brotherhood that's worked very well, or partially very well, since 1965.
Okay.
So it's been around a long time.
Yeah.
And a number of bishops that I've talked to, put a lot of faith in Orthodox brotherhoods, that Orthodox churches from different jurisdictions getting together regularly with each other, which is what we do here during Lent and during the fasts of the Dormition, and sometimes during Advent too. We have church services together.
Oh, that's cool.
And then monthly meetings of clergy meeting together. But that's a pretty old, tradition here. So, which is it's a wonderful thing.
Do you think it's likely, we have to wrap up here, we're about out of time, but...
I spoke too much again, so I'm sorry.
No, this is we're in your wheelhouse now. I threw you back in the ditch at the beginning.
Yeah, you threw me
so
in
we
the
got
ditch,
you back on the road.
At least you gave me a hand,
I was like, here, talk about historical things. This is...
Thank you.
Okay.
I was sweating it,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, maybe Anthony's sorry, but he might have just chuckled a little. Nah, he's a nice guy. He's not. I mean, do you think over time it might organically just through these things like the brotherhoods and
I
things?
hope and pray, yes. I hope and pray that this will happen. I thought that this would happen, I won't say in my lifetime. I hope this happens in my lifetime. When I was 19 and learning about all this and going to pan-Orthodox things, and I went to a school that had, my seminary had different people from different jurisdictions and from all around the world in it. And I thought we were close. But I forget, number one, that we're fighting against inertia here in America, and we're fighting against politics, ecclesiastic politics in the church. And, even though we live in 2020, and I can pick up a telephone and find out what happened in the Patriarchate of Georgia yesterday, the church moves in mysterious ways. And
it's the Entish church. It does not rush.
it has very long words. No, just we do have very long words. Metropolitanate. That's there you go.
I'm not even gonna try that.
But we need for this to happen here in America. We need a mechanism for this to happen sooner rather than waiting and later. The old idea, the old mechanism of waiting for the mother church or waiting for a political upheaval or waiting for maturity, whatever that means. We could make some definitions with maturity, but the other two reasonings have some canonical problems with them. I think there needs to be a council of bishops and to decide on this. This is the biggest question there is in the church today, is how do we missionize with multi-jurisdiction churches, and how do we form independent or autonomous churches? The autonomous churches is the next step down. It would be under a patriarch, and it's like the church in Japan, the church in Finland. There aren't too many autonomous churches anymore. So, but they're autonomous. They can do everything but make their own bishops.
Okay.
So
cool. Well, thank you. That was a lot. My head's a little spun, as they say, and maybe yours is too. But it also does give a lot of context to what we see in our country here, and helps me understand, and hopefully our viewers as well, a little bit more about like, why is there this and that and the other, and we're not denominations. So
we're not denominations, and keep those cards and letters coming in if you have some questions.
Please do. We have
I'm
a
sorry,
comment
cards
section.
or letters. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
There's. I just went 20th century. Sorry.
Oh, what even are stamps? Anyway, thank you as always, Father Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Always a delight.
Good. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in as always, and until next week, catechumens depart.